Hello and welcome to Steph Brown Video Diaries. In this episode, I'm going to show you how I took a store-bought tomato and cantaloupe and transformed them into seedlings you see growing. It took about 12 days in total for them to get to this size. On the far right are cantaloupe and underneath those are tomatoes. I also have some cantaloupe seeds left over and those should be good for about 7 years. So let's get started. First, cut a tomato in half, then core out the center. I suppose you don't have to remove the core, but I do feel like it made the whole process of removing the seeds easier. Also, the core doesn't taste good, so when I was left with just the meaty interior of a tomato to eat, I was certainly happy that it didn't have that pulpy core. Using the back of a paring knife, scrape out the seeds. It does take a little bit of patience, and I had my fair share of troubles removing some of the seeds. In fact, I had to remove most of what was left of the remaining core just to access the rest of the seeds. But in the end, there wasn't too much excess pulp, and I was pleased with the number of seeds I gathered from just half a tomato. Now, not all of these seeds will be viable, but the first thing to do is clean them off and remove the pulp. By using a flour sifter, gently scrape the seeds against the metal grate and rinse it off with water. Eventually, nearly all the pulp will be gone, but the seeds will still have their protective membrane. Next, I did the same thing with the cantaloupe seeds. Now, cantaloupe has more of a stringy type of pulp, and I had to go through big chunks to get to some of the seeds. However, there isn't very much of a membrane, making the cleaning process much quicker. The first day is almost done, but you need to put the seeds into a container with about 2 inches or 6 centimeters of water. Next, securely fasten a fabric over the container using a rubber band or piece of twine. I'm using old olive jugs and covering them with an old sock. I'm all about reusing every resource. Now place these in a cool, dark place for at least 24 undisturbed hours. This is what it looks like 36 hours later. There are no odors permeating, but some mold is forming. You can see that with the tomato seeds here. Those black specks on the side of the container are a type of mold. It might not smell now, but as the mold develops, it certainly will. So I'm going to clean everything up a bit. First, you're going to discard all the stuff floating on top, as this is just pulp, seed membranes, and non-viable seeds. I'm putting it in a Tupperware to strain later because I don't want this to go down the drain and clog the sink. Straining the remaining water from the seeds, I'm going to gently scrub the seeds against the wire mesh, and I'm going to gather them into a container. The tomato seeds are a bit troublesome as the membranes are very sticky and the seeds are so small. Since the tomato seeds have so much membrane remaining, I'm going to place them back into the old olive jar and refill that container with 2 inches of water, recover it, and then return it to a cool, dark place for another 24 to 48 hours. The cantaloupe seeds are much easier, and in fact, I don't feel any sort of membrane remaining on them, so they are now ready to begin the drying process. After rinsing them off, lay them flat on some wax paper. I'm also going to plant a few today using some Miracle-Gro seedling soil. The seeds on the wax paper will lay flat and undisturbed for 24 to 48 hours. 48 hours later, the cantaloupe seeds are now completely dry. They've even changed colors from a yellowish orange to a light white. I'm going to store them in a makeshift envelope that I'm making out of some scrap paper. Yes, I know, I misspelled cantaloupe. Well, I guess I just always think about that joke, you know? Oh, honeydew, I love you, but I'm sorry we can't elope. Anyway, I don't know the breed of this cantaloupe, so I'm going to indicate that they were store-bought on the package in case this variety causes me problems later. The same day I checked on the tomato seeds to find that they had all began to germinate. After draining the excess water, I got a nice close-up of the seeds for you. I gathered 36 germinated seeds from just half of that tomato. I planted 10 of them in large pots, but they did not survive. The rest, which all survived, I planted in these little jiffy pots and some peat moss seed pods, which you'll see later. In the jiffy pots, I again used the Miracle Grow seedling soil. The peat moss seed pods are easy to understand, and the kit that I'm using is a lot like the kit I used for the cantaloupe seeds in that it can be watered from the bottom and that it has a clear plastic cover that acts like a greenhouse. I placed them near a sunny window with their greenhouse plastic cover over top and kept them well watered. In total, this project took about 12 days from collecting the seeds to becoming hardy seedlings. I hope you learned something and were entertained. Thanks for the likes, comments, and subscriptions. Until next time, thanks for watching Steph Brown Video Diaries.